Next up, I'm probably going to get angry at this one because it's about Leslye Headland and her stupid comments. But I think this article shows them in context, so it might not be as bad as it previously sounded. But before that, Autocar's saying things. Hang on, where were we? Windgrace said something first. Sorry, Autocar. Don't forget Outer Limits. Yeah, what about it? Anyway. Yeah, I prefer Outer Limits to Twilight Zone myself. I did. Always loved Outer Limits. Anyway, so between Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, stuff got worse. Is anyone paying attention to lessons, even TV? Well, no, they're not either. You know, we're noting this stuff. We're saying, oh, yes, that's just like in real life, isn't it? You know, all these people are obsessed with the phones and social media and, you know, how many likes they're getting and all this stuff. And we're saying, oh, yeah, it's just like real life. And then carry on. Don't do anything about it. Anyway. Could I have a link for yeah, just a minute. I'll see if I can put it in the chat. I don't know if it'll let me put a link in the chat, but I will try. Just give me a moment. I will find it. Windgrace probably already there. Now I'm not on the main page. Windgrace probably already there. Of course, it's called bloody Windgrace. It's right down at the bottom of me. Come on, I've pressed it. There we go. Right. Where are we? There we go. YouTube Windgrace project. I bet he's there. I bet he's done it. No, he hasn't. Let's see if this works. We've done it. There we go. There we go. Hopefully that works. Has it popped up in there? I tried searching on YouTube, but it doesn't come up. You got to type like Windgrace Project, something like that. But anyway. But yeah, he's got a cool channel, and he's gone over 500 subs, so he can monetize certain aspects of it. So cool. I hate him. Oh dear. I make no claims about my skills. Well, you don't have to, because you're humble. You're a humble man, but your videos are really good, and I wish my videos were as good as your videos. Anyway, right, where were we? Acolyte, Star Wars. Right, here we go. Hang on, let's get rid of that. So I'll show that in case anybody else is watching. There you go. That's Windgrace's link. Write it down quick. I'll pause it and write it down. I'll leave it there for a minute or two. Right. The Acolyte showrunner Leslye Headland points to Star Wars creator George Lucas as an example of the misogyny of the auteur myth. The Acolyte showrunner Leslye Headland views Star Wars... Yes, I know I'm deliberately mispronouncing the first name. Star Wars creator George Lucas as an example. I've just said that. The Acolyte showrunner... That's 3 times. The same sentence repeated 3 bloody times. 4 times, just about. Right. She was asked, this concept, less of a voice or author of more than they do it by themselves. Am I wrong about that? Is that in that sense of it's one thing to have vision, it's one thing to have an author, there's an element of how that comes to life? She was asked. And Ada said, eh? That's what Ada said. What are you talking about? I don't understand the question. Anyway, Headland responded, I think it's also just my experience in the hiring world of being a female writer-director. The number of jobs that I have not gotten, infinite, and the amount of work that I have done to get them is enormous. And listen, no one said to my face, we don't think you can do this because you are a girl. But I do think there's an idea of what a director looks like. And she's a writer. And she can't even speak. I can't do either. But, you know, I'm not getting the big bucks. She continued, and a lot of people will say, no, it's what you do and the cream rises to the top and just the best person for the job. She's trying to make out that that's some sort of excuse. But it's not. It should be true life, that, shouldn't it? We should be, you know, in a merit-based society, but we're not for some reason. We're in a everybody gets a trophy. Anyway. Hey, this little air conditioning unit here, it's not, it's only going quietly on low power, but it's really making a difference. Anyway, if I'm not there, I'd have been like sweat had been rolling down me. Where were we? And the only reason I disagree with that is partially because the auteur myth is so strong that it is really what they want to see is a guy come in there who will do everything himself, who basically can say, I will do all of this by myself, and it'll be perfect, and you don't need to worry about everything. Well, no, that's not it, is it? Sometimes you get auteurs like James Cameron, George Lucas, what's his face? Pulp Fiction fella. Me and names. Him. And, where they have a vision. Yes, we're in an idiocracy, aren't we? Yes, we are. Not to care. That's what we're in. Which is a film I've seen once. I didn't actually like it that much, but I saw the point of it. Quentin Tarantino, that's the fella. It's like examples of auteurs where the vision, yes, Tarantino, thank you, Otakar. But they have their vision, and because they're good filmmakers as well, of varying degrees, but the good filmmakers, they basically know what they want to see on screen, so they have their, yes, thank you, Wing. Everybody's telling me now, well, yes, I know, I've just said Tarantino. They know what they want to put on screen, so it's their vision, their creation, and who's to say that it shouldn't be like that? What is wrong with being an auteur? I mean, the same could be said, also for back in the day, like people like Ray Harryhausen. I know he often didn't write his films, but he was the driving force behind them, wasn't he? Yeah, he had his producer, Charles H. Schneer, but it was really a Ray Harryhausen film, wasn't it? And they had different directors and stuff, but they were his visions, weren't they, on screen? Essentially. Right. Headland went on, and it justifies some crazy behaviour. It justifies, like, I remember somebody telling me something about a male showrunner / creator type person and their behaviour. And listen, I'm not perfect by any means, but I think if you set yourself up that way, male or female, you are setting yourself up for failure. You are setting yourself up to fail because there's no way to do something like Russian Doll by yourself. But I bet you did throw yourself about the set. I bet you did. Because that's what creatives do, especially ones that pick up the big contracts and whatever, get pushed by the studio and get things done. You've got an ego. And you can't let the little people drag you down. There's no way to do something like any of the films that I mentioned in that The Hollywood Reporter article. And then she's probably throwing her weight around on the set of The Acolyte, which I still don't believe is going to get a full series, even though they say it's done. Anyway, she then shifted the conversation to Star Wars. One of the things that I just did recently is I bought all of the concept art for Star Wars, for the original Star Wars by that great guy. I've forgotten his name. Well, I can't say out about that, can I? But she means Ralph McQuarrie. I just bought that 2-volume book about him, and Ralph McQuarrie, that's his name, Jesus. That's me, innit? I am Leslye Headland. Leslye Headland. I can never remember names. When I'm not doing this, I can remember names amazingly. The politicians will appear on telly that I've never even seen before, and I'll say, "Oh, that's such and such fella." But turn the camera on, and then my brain goes to mush. Right, so I've just recently got his 2-volume set of Star Wars concept art from Ralph McQuarrie, and I'm like, this is insane, she remarked. This guy created Star Wars. No, he kind of created the visual look. He interpreted what George Lucas described to him. Like you see the evolution of the idea from what George is trying to express to him to what he puts down on the piece of paper to what it eventually becomes, to why he makes particular decisions, like why he decides to take things in one direction and not the other. That's nothing to do with Ralph McQuarrie's conceptual designs, is it? Why he decides to take things in one direction and not the other. It's his script, isn't it? The scripts he writes, he decides to go one direction and not the other. He's not looking at Ralph McQuarrie's art and saying, because that's a TIE fighter and that's an X-wing, it's got to be doing this, that, and the other, so I'll have to write this. No, don't work like that. Headland, I don't know what I'm talking about. Headland then asserted, this is like what we understand to be Star Wars, the idea that like that only came from George Lucas, that only George Lucas holds the key for what we understand to be Star Wars is just untrue. And I think the prequels are an excellent example of that. I don't know what she's talking about. I think what she's talking about is, all creative endeavors, especially in Hollywood, apart from painting and, writing a novel or whatever, but like movies and TV, the team efforts are there. Yes, you can have an auteur who's the driving force and who's essentially God, they have the last word on everything. But you've still got a team of creative people, helping, haven't you? That's what she's trying to say. But she's saying it in a nasty way and putting down George Lucas. For some reason, because she probably hates men. But you look at Macquarie's work and you realise what an incredible mark this man has. She doesn't hate Ralph Macquarie. What an indelible mark this man has made on culture via this one role he played on this film. Not really. I mean, he did Battlestar Galactica as well, the concept art for that. And probably dozens of other films that we just don't know about. And Buck Rogers in the 25th century, I think he did that as well. I'm trying to think of any others. I can't off the top of my head. I was going to say The Black Hole, but that was Peter Ellenshaw, wasn't it? Or the other one, Harrison Ellenshaw. There's both of them. One's the father and one's the son, and I can't remember which way around it is. Anyway, and the idea that, like, when you are hiring a director, that everyone is sitting in there waiting for George Lucas and not for the person who is going to know to hire Ralph Macquarie, that's the problem. That's the misogyny and the problem with the auteur myth as it stands today. No, you're waiting for George Lucas because he is the creator of the IP, and he's also, the main producer. He's the boss. He's the one in charge, essentially. In the day-to-day running of the movie. But he brought Ralph Macquarie along. He hired Ralph Macquarie because he wanted a visual representation. When he were hawking the Star Wars to all the studios, he had Ralph Macquarie do these concept arts so he could take them round to the studios and show them instead of just handing them a treatment or a script, which they didn't like, did they? Because, he's not the best writer in the world, to be honest, is George Lucas. He'd probably admit that himself, but the artwork that really did it, the Ralph Macquarie artwork. Anyway, and that's what got him his gig for Star Wars from Fox, thankfully. I think he'd been to Fox before, hadn't he? And they rejected him, but then Alan Ladd took over and gave him another chance and stuck his neck out for George, did Alan Ladd Jr. Anyway, because they are not thinking, this is the quote again, because they are not thinking this is the person that will hire the right people and this is the person that will be able to create the lookbooks. I don't know what that means. Does that mean, the Bibles or whatever they have, the designs in? Is that what they're talking about? I don't know. And direct people to get them to that place. They're just thinking, the costume designs, stuff like that. They're just thinking, do you have all the answers? And the truth is that nobody does. And anybody says they do is lying. I wouldn't say that. I think George Lucas probably does have all the answers when it refers to Star Wars. Sometimes they're probably not the right answers or the answers people want to hear, but it's his story. So what he says goes, like it used to. Headland would later state whether it's an editor like Thelma or Marsha Lucas. Who the hell's Thelma? Or Marsha Lucas, whether it's an editor or production designer. Maybe she's the editor on Acolyte, I don't know. Whether it's an editor or production designer like Polly Platt, or if it's an actor, it's a Gwen Verdon or Mia Farrow. The idea that that person is replaceable and the writer-director is not is something I would challenge. And I would challenge that to myself as well. Why do you fire yourself then? I would take that myself to that task. I am not anymore indispensable. Well, that should be separate words. I'm not any more indispensable than my crew is. Yeah, of course you think that. Ironically, Headland's example makes absolutely no sense. There we go. Given Lucas hired McQuarrie to help pitch Star Wars to Fox. See, Wind Grace, this is what's happened when I don't exist outside of linear time and I can't read ahead of an article. In an interview from the Lucasfilm vault, McQuarrie detailed George Lucas talked about Star Wars and he didn't have a title yet, but the concept for a film that was going to be a big galactic war. Then when he started to talk to Fox, it seemed to him a good idea to have some illustrations to show the scope of the visuals that he planned, which I think in George's mind was a big part of the movie, and I told him that I'd love to do it, and he did amazing work, as we all know. McQuarrie continued. He and Gary Kurtz, who was indispensable on Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and then he left. Some people say he got fired, but he actually left because he had a falling out with George Lucas on Return of the Jedi, which is why a lot of people think Return of the Jedi is the lesser film of the original trilogy. Still got the best space battle, though. He and Gary Kurtz came over one day with the script. I started on it the same day. I think I really got into it right away, working on those original paintings that were really done to sell the film. George and Gary went off, let me do more paintings. Fox wanted me to do more paintings. Gary and George went to England and started scouting this whole thing from a budget point of view. Came back 3 or 4 weeks later saying, looks like we're going to do this film. McQuarrie then shared, I never really thought it would be a film while I was working on those original paintings. It seemed so vast a project to me. There was quite a few things set up by George, and I felt I was drawing what he wanted things to look like. I don't think that either of us thought that the way the movie was going to look necessarily. These were just sketches that were the best we could do in terms of how we felt it should look, but not necessarily the end product in the sense that this was really going to be it. But it sort of turned out to be it in the end, for the most part. Some of those paintings were virtually rendered intact onto the screen in Star Wars for certain scenes, he concluded. Yeah, pretty much. As for Headland's claim that anyone is replaceable, Marsha Lucas will probably agree with her, as she made it clear she did not like what Kathleen Kennedy, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams and Lucasfilm did to the property. Yeah, true. In Howard Kazanjian, A Producer's Life by author J.W. Rinsler, she told him, now that Kathleen Kennedy's running Lucasfilm and making movies, it to me that Kathy Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And J.J. Abrams is writing these stories. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. Probably in Harrison Ford's contract because he hated playing Han Solo. But anyway, he wanted to be killed in Return of the Jedi. They were even written into the script. Well, it was written into the script that the Millennium Falcon were destroyed, but I don't think Han Solo would have boarded it at the time because it was Calrissian Lando, wasn't it? But he did want to die in. He wanted to die in Empire, didn't he? I don't think he really wanted to come back for Return of the Jedi, but he did. They waved loads of money at him, I suppose. She added, I thought you don't get the Jedi story. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. You're getting rid of Han Solo. And then at the end of this last one, The Last Jedi, they have Luke disintegrate. They killed Han Solo. They killed Luke Skywalker. They don't have Princess Leia anymore. And they're spitting out movies every year. And they think it's important to appeal to a woman's audience. So now their main character is this female who's supposed to have Jedi powers, but we don't know how she got Jedi powers or who she is. It sucks. The storylines are terrible, just terrible, awful, Marsha Lucas concluded. And some argue that Marsha Lucas, saved the original Star Wars. Apparently the original George's original cut of the film was, almost unwatchable, unless you're Steven Spielberg. Or that other producer, I forgot his name, Guy, somebody or other. You're an English fella. You're a Fox executive. He loved it. He went home and cried and told his family, I've seen the best film ever made. But apparently that was George Lucas's original rubbish cut. But Marsha Lucas and the other two, whose names I can't remember, won an Academy Award for their editing. They saved it. Star Wars was saved in the edit. Because George Lucas, yes, it's his baby, it's his story. And, you know, if he didn't like the cut that they did, he could have said no, we're going with my cut. But, you know, he obviously recognised that they'd made a better film. So there you go. Lucas also noted, Marsha Lucas, she was not the heart of Star Wars. I wouldn't think so. I definitely made scenes work. I made the end battle work. I definitely had a lot to do with making it work, but I wasn't the writer, and I wasn't the director, and I didn't come up with the creative names Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. All those names are classics. George came up with all of it using his amazing imagination, she said. What do you make of Headland's claims? Is this a Bounding into Comics article that's been... Oh, it is. It's there, yeah. I thought it was just on another... I thought, this is getting a bit spicy. But, oh, yes, it is a Bounding into Comics article by John F. Trent. I just saw wherever it is. But, yes, like I said, she's an idiot. I'm sorry. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She thinks she's being, you know, edgy and, you know, girl power and all that. But she's just talking out of her ass. So, sorry, Leslye E. And I don't think the Acolyte will be any good, to be honest. And I don't think it's going to get a full series. So, yeah.